Alright, everybody, thanks for watching and welcome back. Today we're going to look at the Planeswalker cards of the Commander Guff Precon deck. Um, there's 18 cards that we're going to go over, but we're going to go over them in a fair amount of detail because Planeswalkers can be fairly intricate. There's a lot to them in comparison to most artifacts, creature cards, instant sorceries, things like that. So we'll spend a little bit of extra time on them, going over what they do, how they work, what role they play in the deck, and then in future videos we will go over the remaining deck list. But let's go right into it. Okay, so we first went over the commander last time. Let's just go over it one more time as a reminder here. We got a Jeskai, which is white, red, blue, 4 cost, base loyalty of 5. At the beginning of your end step, put a loyalty counter on another target planeswalker you control. Note that that is another target planeswalker, so you wouldn't be able to put that loyalty counter on Commander Guff. You would have to put it on a different planeswalker. Its +1 ability is pretty darn powerful. You add a loyalty counter to the planeswalker, and then you place a 1/1 red and... Sorry, not red and white. I thought it was red and white. Red wizard creature token. And that wizard creature token has tap and add a red mana to your mana pool. Spend that red mana only to cast planeswalker spells. So you can +1, place a counter, or place a token, and that token now taps for a red mana that you can use to spend cast planeswalker spells. There are a lot of, like I said, there are 18 planeswalker cards in here, so that will really come in handy. It's -3. You draw X cards, and Commodore Guff deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of planeswalkers that you control. So, the more planeswalkers you have, the more damage that will deal, and the more cards you will draw when you trigger his -3. So, jumping in, we have the first commander, the first planeswalker of this deck here. There we go. Gideon Jura is a 5-cost mono white with base loyalty of 6. It has 3 abilities. The +2 ability: during target opponent's next turn, creatures that player controls attack Gideon Jura if able. Now, that is all creatures. That isn't just he has to attack you. It's every creature that he controls that on his combat step is able to swing. That creature is forced to swing at Gideon. Just outright. This can be really useful if you are able to get some blocking creatures out, or are able to there's another planeswalker that causes a bunch of damage to be dealt under certain circumstances to attacking creatures. So that can also be really good for drawing aggression away from you if you need an extra turn or two. Its -2 is destroy target tapped creature. So that can be very helpful too when you use the two in conjunction with each other. First, use its +2. Basically, force all creatures that a target opponent controls to attack you if they're able. And then, when those creatures tap, you can then on your next turn -2 and destroy one of them. So you get a little bit of creature control out of here. Its 0 ability: until end of turn, Gideon Jura becomes a 6/6 human soldier creature that is still a planeswalker. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to him this turn. So, that 0 is basically just cool. He's also a creature, but notice that that only lasts until your end step. And loyalty abilities, unless you have a Teferi, I think it's Teferi. Anyway, there's a planeswalker that allows you to activate loyalty abilities an additional time, and some cards and enchantments that do the same. Or that allow you to use them like they have flash. Sorry, that's what I was trying to say. You can use them at any time on anybody's turn. Unless you have that, this will only last on your turn. And so at your end step, it'll turn back into a Planeswalker, and you won't be able to use it to block, being my point. So this is primarily useful on the attack phase. You can just 0, get a 6/6 creature that's swinging, and you would just prevent all damage that would be dealt to it on the attack. So, fantastic Planeswalker. It's really fun to have in here. Gives you a lot of utility options and helps you really crack down on controlling your opponent's board state and preventing them from going crazy on you. The next Planeswalker we have is Vronos. Masked Inquisitor is another 5 cost, but this time he's blue with a base loyalty of 5. It has a really strong +1. Up to 2 other target Planeswalkers you control phase out at the beginning of the next end step. So you use this ability, and then at the beginning of your next end step, 2 of your Planeswalkers cease to exist. Sort of. They can't be attacked, they can't be targeted by anything. They are treated like they don't exist. They don't lose any of their counters, they don't get exiled, they don't die. They just phase out. They're just untouchable, ethereal. You can't do anything with them until the beginning of your next turn. And then at the beginning of your next turn, they come back. So that's very helpful for protecting some of your high-value Planeswalkers. That will get around board wipes. That will get around... that would even get around Worldfire, which is exile all permanents you control. Or, no, it's... Sorry, Worldfire is a exile all permanents. It's not target, it's not anything like that. This would even allow you to phase out, Worldfire would hit, and then those cards would come back onto the battlefield. So, phase out, really super useful with this with Planeswalkers here. It's -2 for each opponent. Return up to 1 target non-land permanent that creature controls to its owner's hand. So, it's the sort of ability where not quite as powerful as Gideon's -2, but in a pinch, you can also just be like, oh yeah, you just cast that 12 cost? No, I'm going to put that back into your hand, and now you have to spend that 12 again to cast it. It can be used for temporarily getting rid of some pesky blockers in preparation for you swinging, or doing all kinds of other things. But it is a lesser form of targeted removal. But it hits each opponent, which is also something worth noting. It's not just target creature, it's for each opponent. So the more players that you're playing against or are left in the game, the more powerful this one will be. It's -7. Target artifact you control becomes a 9/9 construct artifact creature and gains vigilance, indestructible, and this creature can't be blocked. So a 9/9 vigilance, indestructible creature that cannot be blocked is really strong. That kind of goes without saying. You can use it for the attack, you can use it for the block, it can't be destroyed, so it doesn't matter if you block Death Touch or if you block a 45/45, it's irrelevant, it just tanks it. And then with the vigilance, and it can't be blocked, you can swing with it, dealing 9 damage, and then you can block with it, and then, anyway. It also protects that artifact's innate function with that indestructibility. So, very good for a -7, especially if we're starting with 5. That means we can pop that on the 3rd turn after we play this Planeswalker. Very strong, great abilities. Definitely helps with the overall Commander Guff having Planeswalkers, because then you're getting those creatures out, and that blocking is really important in this deck. Because you're pretty vulnerable with all these Planeswalkers that you're throwing around. So the next Planeswalker that we got is Elspeth, Sun's Champion. Now, Elspeth is a 6-cost mono white with base loyalty 4. Its +1 is create 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens, which is really strong and really helpful because you create those tokens. Now you have cheap blockers, and unless your opponent can get trample, your opponents get trample oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes in conjunction with the other cards in this deck. With those 3 tokens, you will be able to kind of keep up with your board state. So your opponent's playing all their stuff, doing all the things. Well, this gives you blockers, and then depending on what cards you end up getting later on, those blockers can morph into decently sized attacking creatures. So great +1, gives you some protection, and also some creature utility for attacking, blocking, whatever you want to do. It's -3, destroy all creatures with power 4 or greater. Now, you're running a Planeswalker deck. Most of your creatures don't have power 4. Most of your creatures have power, 2 or 3. It's a lot of the time, not all of the time, but a lot of the time, this -3 will go right over your head. It won't hit your Planeswalkers. They will stay right there, but they will board wipe your opponent's board state most of the time. Most decks tend to be creature heavy. That's not the rule. That's just statistically, most of them tend to run around creatures. That'll basically get rid of all the high costs. No, it won't actually board wipe them because it's power 4 or greater, but it'll get rid of all of the really heavy hitters most of the time. So that's really great for the protection. But then the -7, you gain an emblem with creatures you control, get +2/+2, and have flying. So that's where those 1/1s can come in. Because you have all those 1/1 lifelink soldiers that you've been building up, and then you -7. Now those 1/1s become 3/3 flyers that you can use for your defenses or your attack or whatever the case ends up being. So that's Elspeth. Next up, we have Sarkhan the Masterless. Is a 5-cost red with base loyalty 5. He has a fixed ability of whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, each dragon you control deals 1 damage to that creature. Now, this is not a dragon deck primarily. At first, when I was playing this, I was like, why the heck is this card in this deck? Because I'm not producing dragons, really. And then I kept reading, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe. Until end of turn, each planeswalker you control becomes a 4/4 red dragon creature card that gains flying. Okay. So whenever they attack, I can have all my planeswalkers become dragons, and then whenever they attack, each creature that's attacking me takes damage equal to the number of planeswalkers I control. Except, like Gideon, they only become dragons until the end of your turn. And so when your opponent is attacking you, which would trigger that ability, they are no longer dragons and they are again planeswalkers. So the only dragons that you're really going to have for that ability, create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying as its -3. But this card can win you the game. Say you have 7 or 8 planeswalkers on the battlefield. Sarkhan +1, swing and all. And then you have some good, decent power toughness creatures that have flying. So that can be one way that you put some serious pain and hurt on your opponents. So, that's Sarkhan. Took me a while to warm up to him, but I definitely enjoy having him in this deck. He adds a lot of versatility and options for you. The next one up is Ajani Steadfast, which is a 4-cost mono white with base loyalty of 4. Its +1 ability, until end of turn, up to one target creature gets +1/+1 and gains first strike, vigilance, and lifelink. So there's your life gain. You do have creatures in this deck, so it's not like you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to +1 and I'm not going to be able to do anything. Another thing to note is it says up to 1. So you don't have to actually choose one. If you don't have any creatures, you can still use the +1, get that loyalty counter on there. That's perfectly acceptable. It's -2. Put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, and a loyalty counter on each other planeswalker you control. So with the -2, now we are not only buffing our creatures, but even if we don't have creatures, we are buffing our planeswalkers and making them stronger and more powerful. We have the -7. You gain an emblem with, if a source would deal damage to you or a planeswalker you control, prevent all but one of that damage. That emblem can also be a game winner. Especially if you're playing against a big, large creature deck that hits hard and swings hard. Because you can take those 15/15s or whatever it is that you're dealing with, and you can be like, okay, I will take 1 damage for each of those creatures. So that is very, very useful, and you can immediately flip that because then they're impotent, and your creatures have the lifelink there, and so you're gaining life. They're not dealing enough damage to you to overcome that, and so that is a really powerful protection card in Ajani Steadfast here. Next up, we have Narset of the Ancient Ways, a red, blue, white 4-cost with base loyalty of 4. Narset has a +1 ability. You gain 2 life and add red, blue, or white to your mana pool. Now, it's not all 3, it's one or the other. You may spend this mana only to cast a non-creature spell. So it works similarly to this one, except for this one you can also cast instant sorceries and enchantments with. Its -2 is draw a card, and you may discard a card. No, it says draw a card, and then you may discard a card. When you discard a non-land card this way, Narset of the Ancient Way deals damage equal to that card's mana value to target creature or planeswalker. So that is kind of counter, or it's designed to counter opponent's creatures and opponent's planeswalkers. You can just up and, you know what? I don't like you having that Garruk Apex Predator. I'm just going to go ahead and discard this creature card, and it's going to take a bunch of damage, and now it's dead. Or this planeswalker card or whatever. So it's just simple removal. And then it's -6. You get an emblem with whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this emblem deals 2 damage to any target. So this planeswalker is really simple. It does like 3 things. Ramp, card draw, burn. It's nice, straightforward, simple, to the point, and a little bit of life gain. So I really liked having that one in here. Nahiri the Harbinger is a 4-cost Boros with base loyalty 4. It's +2. You may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Notice there's more draw card there. -2, exile target enchantment, tapped artifact, or tapped creature. So there's more removal. And then -8, search your library for an artifact or creature card, put it into the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. It gains haste. Return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So, boom. Play your artifact or creature, bounce it back to your hand at the end of the turn, then you can cast it. Gives you some library dive, which is really helpful. But card draw, control, library dive. You know? Very utilitarian, very helpful, almost omni-situational. Like I can't really think of very many situations where this would not benefit me in some way, shape, or form. Next, we have Teo, Geometric Tactician. It's a 3-cost Planeswalker with a base power of 3. When Teo enters the battlefield, create a 0/4 white wall creature token with Defender and Flying. So that gives you an extra blocker with Flying. That's always helpful. +1, you and target opponent each draw a card. So card draw, but it's also borderlines on a group hug deck a little bit, you know, because you're also helping out an opponent. Oh yeah, go ahead and draw a card, sure. But I also get to draw a card. -2, choose left or right until your next turn. Each player may only attack the nearest opponent in the chosen direction, and Planeswalkers controlled by that opponent. So basically, when you use that ability, you can dictate that people can only attack to the left, to the player on their left, or people can only attack the player on their right, or permanents they control. So you can protect yourself if you're sitting, or if there's a player at the table that is like, oh yeah, I can swing with this turn and I'm going to kill you. You can always pop that ability and just be like, yeah, actually you can't attack me, but you can attack your neighbor. You know? Give yourself a little bit of a buffer there. The next Planeswalker we have is Saheeli, Sublime Artificer. Is a 3-cost red-blue base loyalty 5. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. So, Planeswalkers are non-creature. So whenever you cast a Planeswalker spell, you get a token. Good gen, gives you not quite as many as Elspeth, but a pretty good, reliable, low-to-the-ground, repeatable source of create a token, create a token, create a token. It doesn't have any plus abilities for loyalty counters, which is why you can use Commodore Guff's end step ability here to restore loyalty counters on this type of Planeswalker here. It only has one -2 ability. Target artifact you control becomes a copy of another target artifact or creature you control until end of turn, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. So, fairly straightforward as to what this does for the deck. Primarily, its use is in dropping these servos. Dropping these, yeah, they are servos. I was like, they're Thopters, but no, they're servos. Dropping these servos. But then you can use its -2 to then take those servos and make them something better. Until end of turn. So it's not permanent, but temporarily you can be like, yeah, no, I want this. And then you can have another one. So that's very helpful, especially for only being a 3-cost. The other thing, too, that I like about this one is that its colored manas can either be played by red or blue. There are no dedicated red or blue here, which I find really nice. Next up, we have the Wanderer. That's another one that only has a minus ability here. Its passive is prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to you and to other permanents you control. It's a 4-cost white with a base 5, and -2, exile target creature with power 4 or greater. So this is similar to the Elspeth, except for its target instead of all. So Elspeth definitely has a stronger, more powerful effect for her -2. However, this one is target. So if you have a creature that's power 4 or greater, you could activate this instead of Elspeth to target specifically the ones that your opponents have, rather than trigger Elspeth and then lose your thing too. So it's very situational how you want to use it. Has a really great fire protection ability right there. Starts out with base loyalty 5, which can be really, really nice to start with. Our next Planeswalker is Narset. Parter of the Veils is a 3-cost blue. Base loyalty counter 5 again. Passive ability, each opponent can't draw more than one card each turn. I have seen this card turn the entire table against you real fast. Because you can still draw tons of cards from Guff. And you are drawing tons of cards from Guff. But nobody else is drawing any cards. Except for the first one that they would draw on their turn. Which can make some people upset. So, play this one when you're fairly confident that you can protect her. Or you're playing against a deck that is designed to draw cards. Then you'll be a table hero, except for one enemy. It has a -2 of look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So essentially, look at the top 4 library or cards of your library, draw one, and then put the rest on the bottom of your library. Essentially, scry 4, draw 1, sort of a deal. Not quite, but close enough. Really good utility, again, just like the other ones. It's primarily here for this ability here, but you can use the loyalty counters, or the Commander Guff's passive here to make those bigger and use those minus abilities without actually running down and killing these Planeswalkers here. Alright. We have 6 more Planeswalkers to go through here. We are 2/3 of the way done. But we only have 2 more Planeswalker types. So we'll go through each type all at once. We'll lay them out here. They are Jace and Chandra. We have Jace Beleren, Jace Mirror Mage, and Jace Archetype of Thought. So, Jace Beleren is a 3-cost blue, base loyalty of 3. It's +2. Each player draws a card. That's pretty simple. Each player just draws a card. Now remember, if you have Narset out, then each player will still draw a card. Because that would be the first card, theoretically, that your opponents would be drawing on their turn. So you can give your opponents more card draw through removing their card draw. And so that basically allows you to control their additional card draw. And you'd be like, yeah, on my terms, you can draw more cards. Which can be helpful. So his -1, target player draws a card. So instead of everybody drawing a card, you can then just be like, no, I'm just going to draw a card here for just a -1. And it has a -10, target player mills 20 cards. So it's not each opponent draws 20 cards, it's just target player draws 20 cards. But the likelihood that you get to there, I mean, there's a decent amount of protection here. But your base, you're starting out with 3 mana there. So that's something to be aware, or not 3 mana, 3 loyalty counters. Sorry. So that's something to consider and be aware of as you're proceeding forward. Moving here, Jace Mirror Mage, 3-cost base 4. He has a unique ability. He has Kicker 2, which means that when you cast him, instead of casting him for 3, you can cast him for 5. And if you cast him for 5, you clone him, and you put 2 onto the battlefield, except for the token that you create, token copy, is non-legendary. And so you can have both of them on the field at the same time. It does not have any minus loyalty abilities. It only goes up. It does not go down. Its +1 is Scry 2, and its 0 is draw a card and reveal it. Remove a number of loyalty counters equal to that card's mana value from Jace Mirror Mage. So it doesn't have a negative ability. It doesn't have a -2 or a minus anything. It just has a 0, but that 0 is technically a minus X mana value of the card that you draw. So you can either, just comparing these to each other, say you draw, let's say that there's a 6 cost. Let's say that you have Mirror Mage on the field and Jace on the field, or that Jace on the field. And you've cloned Mirror Mage, right? So we'll use one of them to scry 1. And there's a 6 cost on top of our library that we want to be able to cast. So we're going to put that back on top of our library. But the most efficient way of getting that card would be to use Jace rather than Jace. Because you use Jace, then Jace is going to lose, this one is going to lose 6 loyalty counters. And essentially it's going to be a -6 to draw a card instead of a +2 to draw a card over here. So that 0 ability I'm really not a huge fan of. There's so many more efficient ways of doing what it does. But in a situation where you don't have the ability to draw that one more card and you scry and you need it, you can use that. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, I would strongly recommend avoiding using that 0 unless you have a very specific instance or reason or need for triggering it. Unless you just don't care about Jace Mirror Mage at all and he'll just die and then go away. Which is also valid. But I like to keep him around for that scry ability here. But the third Jace, Archetype of Thought, is a 4-cost, 4 base loyalty, +1. Until end of turn, whenever a creature an opponent controls attacks, it gets -1, -0 until end of turn. So that is... Think about that. It's whenever it attacks, and not whenever it attacks you. So it's just blanket. Till your next turn, whenever a creature an opponent controls attacks, it gets 1 less. It loses 1 on its power. That can be very helpful for your own survivability. It's -2. Reveal the top 3 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles, and you put one of those piles into your hand and the other on the bottom of your library in any order. So that's 3 cards down. Your opponent can separate them by how your opponent evaluates their importance and their relevance. And then you can put 1 pile into your hand, which will be either 1 card or the 2 cards. And then you put one of them in your hand, put the other ones on the battlefield or under the graveyard or into the bottom of your library in any order, all over the place today. And so that's a -2. It's pretty solid for a -2 in my opinion. Just because you can technically have your choice of draw 1 better card or 2 not as good cards. But again, it's your opponent that's dividing the 2 up. And so your opponent might be able to identify what card is most beneficial for the way that your deck is progressing. But that's not a guarantee because your deck might run better with some other cards that might overall be less powerful cards, but with what you got on the field, they synergize so much better. Or however it is. But it depends on your opponent, who you're playing. Really fun ability. I like having it at my disposal. But The -8 for this Jace is for each player. Search that player's library for a non-land card and exile it. Then, that player shuffles. You may cast those cards without paying their mana costs. So essentially, -8, search each player's library for a card and free cast it. That can win the game. In so many different ways, that can just win the game a lot of times. So, just great to keep that one in reserve. So those are the 3 Jace Planeswalkers that we have. And the last 3 Planeswalkers that we have are the Chandras. First one being Chandra Awakened Inferno. The second one being Chandra Torch of Defiance. And the last one being Chandra Legacy of Fire, which may well, in my opinion, be one of the most powerful Planeswalkers in this deck. Especially in this particular deck context. But we'll go one at a time. The first one, Chandra Awakened Inferno, is a 6 cost with a base of 6. Passive ability, this spell cannot be countered. +2. Each opponent gets an emblem with, at the beginning of your upkeep, the emblem deals 1 damage to you. So, +2, boom, everybody gets one of those. +2, everybody gets another one. +2, everybody gets another one. -3, Chandra Awakened Inferno deals 3 damage to each non-elemental creature. Thing to note, this will hit your creatures, most of them. Only a couple of your creatures are going in this deck are going to be elementals. So that's something to be aware of, is that if you pop -3, that'll hit your creatures too. It's -X. Chandra Awakened Inferno deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker. If a permanent dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it instead. This does not get around indestructible, unfortunately, because if it's indestructible, then it would not be dying. So it only gets exiled if the creature would die, and if it's indestructible, then it wouldn't die. But this can be particularly good for against decks like Marin, or decks that have graveyard pull. So where they're just like, oh, you killed it? Cool, it's back. You can use this one to remove that. So, great for control, great for a little bit of burn. For a 6 cost, I feel like 6 might be a little bit spendy for it, as far as mana efficiency, but I still really like that card. The next one here, we have Chandra Torch of Defiance, which is a 4 cost red 4 base loyalty. With a +1, exile the top card of your library. You may cast this card. You may cast that card. If you don't, Chandra Torch of Defiance deals 2 damage to each opponent. So basically, +1, boom. Do I have the land to play it? No. Okay, even if I don't play it, it's going to do something. And if I do play it, then I get a card draw, basically. Cool. It has a secondary +1 of add 2 red to your mana pool. So, alternatively, we could just ramp more. It has a -3 of Chandra Torch of Defiance deals 4 damage to target creature. And a -7 of you get an emblem with, whenever you cast a spell, this emblem deals 5 damage to any target. So we've got damage, card draw, and ramp for a 4 cost. I love that. That is amazing, in my opinion. But those two are not, in my opinion, as good as this one. So you have these two out on the field together, and they will make your opponents suffer a lot. Commodore Guff, -3. deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of Planeswalkers you control. Trigger that. But then, at the beginning of your end step, Chandra deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of Planeswalkers you control. So, here, you have Guff dealing damage, and then you have Chandra dealing that exact same amount of damage. And so you can, and it's to each opponent. And so between the two of them, depending on how many Planeswalkers you have, you can really just pow the heck down on your opponents and get a whole bunch of burn going, build that damage up. This Chandra has a +1 of add red for each Planeswalker you control. So if you've got, which I don't really think that there is one in this deck, but if you got like a fireball or something like that, you can trigger, and then you can pump this into it, and you got this mana ramp, and you can do all kinds of crazy stuff. It has a 0 ability, remove a loyalty counter from any number of permanents you control, exile that many cards from the top of your library, you may play them this turn. So a little bit of card draw, sort of, tons of ramp, tons of burn, 5 cost, base loyalty 3. I just really, really love the look on my opponent's faces when I put that down. It's very satisfying to kind of watch the blood drain from their faces, which I've seen a couple of times. Not that it was really an issue for them, because then they just killed Chandra, and I was like, well, that's fine. It was fun. I enjoyed it while it lasted. But those are the 18 Planeswalkers of this deck. In the next video, we're going to go ahead and jump into the non-Planeswalker cards. I'm going to try and go through all of the non-Planeswalker cards. Might be a little bit longer than some of my other videos. I apologize for that. But I'm trying to keep it to the pattern of 4 videos on a Precon analysis. And with these Planeswalkers, this one is going to take a little bit longer. But for now, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.